In school, I was labeled the nerd, a title I wore due to my sharp intellect and unyielding focus on academics. Yet, my peers had no idea that when the weekend arrived, I transformed into someone entirely different. While most of my classmates were sprouting up like beanstalks, I stayed petite, standing just 5'7", and weighing a slender 123 pounds. My name is Miranda, and I'm 16 years old. Many of the friends I'd known since childhood had begun to drift toward more mature relationships, branching into new social circles. Some joined sports teams, their camaraderie leaving me on the sidelines, fully aware I couldn't keep up in their competitive world. So, I threw myself into my studies, earning top grades and an array of scholastic accolades that only deepened my nerd reputation. Like many boys, I once dreamed of becoming a sports hero, imagining myself on fields or courts, winning glory. But reality had other plans. Those dreams dissolved, replaced by a secret longing I kept locked away, shared with no one. For as long as I could remember, I'd been captivated by something else, dressing up in my sister's clothes. As I grew older, that quiet fascination began to make more sense. I spent hours practicing makeup and hair whenever I was sure no one would catch me, each session helping me refine the illusion of being a girl. My sister, Stacy, was my closest confidant, though even she didn't know my secret, at least not until the day she walked in on me, fully dressed in her outfit. My heart stopped, but her reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of outrage or confusion, she seemed astonished by how feminine I looked. That night, as the world slept, we talked endlessly. I shared my secret, and she listened without judgment. Stacy didn't just accept me, she embraced me. With her coaxing and encouragement, we began venturing out together on weekends as sisters, Stacy and Miranda, whenever our parents left for their cabin. At first, stepping into the world like that terrified me. But as time passed, I realized something astonishing. Many of the boys from school were drawn to me, just as they were to any other girl. What began as fear transformed into fascination. Stacy, 2 years older than me, became my greatest supporter. But as she prepared to leave for college, a looming change hung over our lives. Our parents, as usual, planned to spend weekends at their cottage. Yet now that Stacy was leaving, they insisted I come with them. Neither of us had ever enjoyed the woods. It was a place we actively avoided. After a lengthy debate, I managed to win my independence. My parents begrudgingly agreed I could stay home, just as they'd let Stacy when she was my age. Before leaving, Stacy made sure I was taken care of in more ways than one. She left me a treasure trove of clothes, planning to update her wardrobe for college anyway. With her blessing, I moved into her bedroom, which came with the added luxury of a private bath. Her closet, still filled with skirts, dresses, and accessories, became mine to explore. My dad suggested I pack everything away, but I convinced him otherwise with a half-truth. Stacy might need them when she visits. My mom, however, was harder to fool. She shot me a knowing glance, one of those enigmatic smiles only mothers can manage. Thankfully, she didn't press the issue. After Stacy left, I eagerly waited for my first weekend alone, diving into her closet to try on everything she'd left behind. Some pieces didn't fit, but many did. The ones I couldn't use were packed away, satisfying my dad and drawing another amused smirk from my mom, though I was too distracted to notice. One evening, while researching for a school project, I stumbled across an online shop that specialized in items designed to help boys look like girls. Intrigued, I measured myself meticulously and placed an order, careful not to overdraw my savings. As I waited for my purchases to arrive, I set up my computer in my new bedroom and continued perfecting my craft, embracing the quiet transformation that had become my sanctuary. The packages arrived at the perfect time, landing on the doorstep while I was home from school and my parents were still at work. My heart raced as I carried the boxes to my room, the anticipation almost too much to bear. Once the door was shut, I tore them open, revealing the treasures inside: a pair of realistic breast forms designed to adhere seamlessly to the chest, a padded panty made of the softest flesh-toned latex, and most incredible of all, a hyper-realistic prosthetic with a fully functional, lifelike design that took me a moment to even pick up. Each piece matched my skin tone so closely it felt as if they had been custom-made just for me. The excitement of seeing myself fully transformed was almost unbearable, but I had to wait until Friday night when my parents would leave for the weekend. I spent the week meticulously studying the instruction sheets, committing every step to memory. By the time Friday arrived, I had everything I needed ready to go. As soon as I returned home from school, I began the transformation. The first step was to shave thoroughly below the waist, ensuring the adhesive would bond securely. Then, with a deep breath, I applied lubricant and carefully positioned myself into the prosthetic's inner sheath, gluing the edges to my skin. The result was astonishing. When I looked down, I saw what looked like my own, perfectly natural female anatomy. It even required me to sit down for certain things, adding to the illusion. Next came the padded panty, which added gentle curves to my hips and smoothed everything else into place. The back tapered up snugly and was glued to ensure it stayed secure. Finally, I tackled the breast forms. Applying the glue was straightforward, and after pressing them against my chest and holding them in place for 30 seconds, they felt like a natural part of me. It took nearly 30 minutes to complete the entire process, but when I stepped back and looked in the mirror, I was speechless. There she was, a young girl with soft curves, a slim waist, and delicate proportions, standing where I had been moments before. At 5'6" and 125 pounds, the transformation was flawless. My long, soft brown hair fell past my shoulders, tied neatly in a ponytail. I felt a rush of excitement and pride, but there was still more to do. I reached for a pair of panties and slid them on, marveling at how natural they looked. The bra, however, proved to be a challenge. It took several attempts before I managed to fasten it properly over my new breasts. Once it was on, I selected a pair of shorts and a casual top from the dresser, then slipped into flats from the closet. When I turned back to the mirror, my reflection took my breath away. The shorts fit like they were made for me, hugging my hips in a way that felt so undeniably feminine. Every detail, the curve of the fabric, the way my hair framed my face confirmed what I already knew. I had become Miranda. As I admired the results, I heard the sound of the front door opening. My parents were home. Panic surged through me. There was no way I could hide this transformation, not now. I stayed in my room, barely breathing, hoping they would leave without calling for me. Each passing moment stretched endlessly, but patience paid off. After what felt like an eternity, they left without noticing anything amiss. The second the house was mine again, I let out a sigh of relief. Grabbing a tube of lipstick, I applied just enough to bring a soft color to my lips. Then, with a final glance in the mirror, I descended the stairs, fully embracing the weekend as Miranda. I was at the stove, stirring a pan of dinner, when a soft knock on the glass door startled me. My heart leaped into my throat as I glanced outside. Standing on the patio was Cecil, a fellow nerd who lived just a few houses down the street. The drapes over the door wall in the kitchen had been left open, and she had clearly seen me. My mind raced. How much had she noticed? Could I explain this away? There was no avoiding it now. Summoning my courage, I smiled, walked to the door, and let her in. Cecil stepped inside, shutting the door behind her, her wide eyes glued to me as I stood by the sink. She didn't even try to hide her surprise. Without a speck of makeup, I still looked undeniably feminine, something she clearly recognized immediately. Her gaze swept over me, from the well-fitting clothes to my soft features, and it was obvious that anyone looking at me would think I was just another teenage girl. "I'll be damned," she exclaimed. "You look so different." I gestured toward a chair, inviting her to sit, while I tried to compose myself. Once she was settled, I began. "Thanks, Cecil," I said, trying to sound casual. "I do my best, that's all." Then, lowering my voice to a more serious tone, I added, "But I really need you to keep this a secret. Please." Her astonishment hadn't faded, but she nodded earnestly. "Of course. I won't tell anyone. You can trust me." "What do you call yourself when you're well, like this?" she asked, gesturing to me. I hesitated for only a moment. My sister and I decided on the name Miranda, I said. Cecil's face lit up. Well, Miranda, she said, leaning forward with an unexpected sparkle in her eyes. I was going to ask you anyway, so you'd better be ready by 7. We're going to the art fair tonight. I froze, searching her face for any sign that this was a trick. But there was none. Cecil had always been straightforward, and now was no exception. She caught the doubt in my expression and quickly explained. Look, Miranda, she began, her voice soft but insistent. I'm the only girl in the neighborhood our age. I'm just like you. The boys see us as nerds, and the girls are so wrapped up in getting boyfriends that they barely talk to me. The guys don't talk to you either. But now we have each other. We're both girls, and we can be girlfriends in every sense, friends who get each other, who can hang out and have fun, just like before, only better. She reached for my hand, her grip warm and reassuring. We can be the smart ones in school and still have a great time. Her words struck a chord, and I found myself nodding slowly. But Cecil, I said cautiously, you have to be careful. No slipping up. You can't give me away, even by accident. Deal, she agreed, a wide grin spreading across her face. We hugged, sealing the promise. As we pulled apart, Cecil's enthusiasm bubbled over. Do you have any plans for the weekend? She asked. No, I replied, still processing everything. Great, she said, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Tomorrow night, there's going to be a band at the art fair. Let's go in the late afternoon so we can get ready together and wear something a little more sexy, I suggested, raising an eyebrow. Cecil laughed and nodded. Sexy, but casual. You know, just enough to turn some heads without overdoing it. I smiled at her boldness. Come over at 4, I said. Bring your clothes and makeup. I'm pretty good at makeup, so I'll do yours, and you can help me with my hair. Deal. She jumped at the idea, and after another quick hug, Cecil headed home, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I tidied up the kitchen, a mix of excitement and nervousness settled over me. I'd been out as Miranda before, but only with Stacy and usually just for shopping trips. Tomorrow would be entirely different, an adventure into uncharted territory. The idea of mingling with boys, dressed as Miranda, sent a wave of apprehension through me. But as I looked down at my lap and caught my reflection in the kitchen window, a small smile played on my lips. There was no way anyone could see through my disguise, not unless they were a doctor. That night, as I slipped into bed, I chose a delicate Barbie doll set that clung softly to my form. The thin fabric hugged my curves, my breasts pressing against it just enough for my nipples to leave subtle impressions. The matching panty offered only a teasing hint of what lay beneath. As I drifted off, my dreams became an enchanting cascade of lace and satin. I found myself walking gracefully in high heels, my hair styled to perfection, and the faint scent of perfume trailing behind me with every elegant step. It was a dreamscape of beauty, femininity, and confidence, unlike anything I had experienced before. When morning came, I prepared a light breakfast, savoring the calm of the day ahead. Afterward, I went to the bathroom to begin my transformation. Stripping down, I studied myself in the mirror. There was some hair under my arms, a faint sprinkling on my arms, and the light shadow of a beard. Determined to eliminate every trace, I filled the tub with warm water, adding a generous splash of my mother's bubble bath. As the sweet scent filled the room, I sank into the soothing water and began shaving away every hair meticulously. By the time I was done, my skin felt as smooth as silk. I let the water carry away the remnants of my transformation, then stepped under the shower to wash my hair and ensure I was pristine. Wrapping myself in a soft robe, I sat at the vanity my sister had left behind. With a steady hand and a pair of tweezers, I carefully shaped my eyebrows, thinning them slightly for a softer, more feminine look. Once I was satisfied, I slipped into a pair of simple panties, a pair of shorts and a light blouse, then began planning my outfit for the evening. I laid each piece out on the bed like a painter preparing a palette, then headed to the kitchen for a quick lunch. At 3 in the afternoon, I began getting ready in earnest. Experience had taught me to start with makeup, So I sat at the vanity and got to work. The foundation I had picked up months ago glided on effortlessly, evening out my complexion. A layer of powder set it in place, leaving my skin with a soft, matte finish. I paused to admire the transformation before moving on to my eyes. My blue irises sparkled against the soft green eyeshadow I applied, accented with a slightly darker shade. A black pencil outlined my lower lids, while liquid eyeliner traced a sleek line above. A few coats of mascara gave my lashes a dramatic lift. For blush, I chose a gentle peach tone that softened my features and brought a natural warmth to my cheeks. When I finally smiled at my reflection, I hardly recognized myself. The firm, pert breasts completing the illusion made me feel, even more deeply, that I truly was a girl. I selected a push-up bra with delicate lace trim and thin padding, which enhanced the shape of my breasts beautifully. They swelled naturally within the cups, the lace adding a romantic touch. Smiling, I slid on a pair of pantyhose, followed by a short, silky slip. The skirt I had chosen was a classic pleated design in green and dark blue plaid, its hem daringly resting a few inches above my knees. The blouse, a crisp white with short sleeves, featured a lace insert at the collar. As I buttoned it up, I noticed the faint hint of my breasts visible through the opaque lace, subtle but undeniably feminine. Next came the accessories. I stepped into a pair of low-heeled shoes that complemented my look and made my legs appear longer. From my jewelry box, I selected simple gold button earrings, a delicate gold chain with a cameo pendant, a black and gold watch for my left wrist, and a bracelet of tiny hearts for my right. All that remained was lipstick and my hair. Satisfied with my preparation, I waited for Cecil, filling the time by half-watching television while anticipation buzzed in my chest. Finally, the doorbell chimed. I opened the door, and Cecil stood there, her expression lighting up as she took me in. "Miranda, you look wonderful," she exclaimed, her voice warm and sincere. Her words filled me with a newfound confidence. Tonight would be a night to remember. My makeup was tasteful and understated, and my outfit wasn't flashy or provocative. I was just a pretty teenage girl, blending in effortlessly. When Cecil arrived, I took her bag, and we headed to my room. I told her to sit at the vanity, ready to transform her look. Cecil, like me, was a bit of an outsider, though for different reasons. She had never quite mastered the art of makeup, and it wasn't her fault. Losing her mother at a young age meant she had no one to guide her, and her attempts to teach herself often ended in frustration. Seeing how polished I looked, she instantly trusted I could teach her a few tricks. Before I could even suggest where to start, Cecil surprised me by undressing down to her bra and panty. It caught me off guard, but I quickly composed myself. Under her usual baddie clothes, Cecil had a lovely figure, slim, with a trim waist and breasts comparable in size to mine. Her fair skin and striking blue eyes paired beautifully with her curly auburn hair, the kind of hair many girls and boys would envy. It was clear Cecil had untapped potential, waiting to be revealed. Though I'd seen my sister undressed countless times, this was different. Cecil wasn't my sister. Still, I kept things professional, guiding her to sit at the vanity. I began working on her makeup, explaining each step as I went. I used soft, complementary colors to bring out her natural beauty, accenting her eyes with subtle tones and framing them with black eyeliner on the upper lids and a pencil below to create a wide-eyed, alluring look. Coral blush highlighted her cheekbones, giving her face a fresh, radiant glow. When I finished, Cecil gazed at her reflection stunned. She looked absolutely beautiful. She slipped into her outfit, a red pleated skirt similar to mine, but in a bold, striking hue, and paired it with a black blouse adorned with gold buttons. Once her jewelry was on, she stepped into her shoes and turned her attention to me. "Your turn," she said, a sparkle of excitement in her eyes. Cecil wet my hair, working with precision as she rolled and styled it. Using gel to set it, she crafted a perfect pageboy hairstyle that framed my face with soft curves and bangs neatly cut across my forehead. The look was polished and feminine, complementing my features beautifully. I finished with a spritz of my favorite perfume and applied a pale red lipstick to complete the transformation. My purse, prepared earlier, held everything I'd need for the night: my feminine wallet, tissues, and my lipstick. Cecil was positively glowing as we left the house, thrilled to finally have another girl in the neighborhood to bond with. Her excitement was contagious, and we were both smiling until we stepped outside and walked straight into my parents'. The silence that followed was suffocating. My parents' eyes scanned me from head to toe, their expressions unreadable. It felt like time had frozen, and I could barely breathe. Finally, my mother broke the silence. "Where are you girls going?" she asked, her tone calm but layered with unspoken meaning. Before I could stammer out an answer, Cecil jumped in, her confidence saving the moment. "The art fair," she said smoothly. "There's a band playing later, and we wanted to stay for the music." My mother studied us for a moment longer, then nodded. "Have a nice time," she said, adding pointedly, "We'll talk about this tomorrow morning." Relief washed over me, though it was tinged with dread. Cecil grabbed my hand, and we walked away from the house, but I was trembling. "I'm dead," I whispered. "I might as well end it now and save us all the trouble." Cecil squeezed my hand reassuringly. "Maybe," she said, her tone thoughtful, "but they let you go. That has to mean something. Either they already knew, or you looked so nice that they couldn't come up with a reason to stop us." Her logic was sound, but it didn't erase the anxiety bubbling inside me. Still, she was right about one thing: I was free, at least for tonight. Whatever happened tomorrow, I would deal with it then. For now, I decided to let go of my fears and enjoy the evening. After all, this might be the last time I get a chance to live as Miranda for a while. Tonight, I was determined to make it count. The art fair felt like stepping into another world, a world where Cecil and I were no longer invisible. People who wouldn't have spared us a second glance in high school were now watching us, curious and intrigued. As the band began to play, Cecil and I were both approached by boys asking us to dance. Cecil accepted eagerly, her confidence blooming in this newfound attention. I hesitated, nerves bubbling in my chest, but finally I nodded. The moment I stepped onto the dance floor, I knew I was crossing into uncharted territory. Cecil was quickly swept away by Bill, while I found myself in Grant's firm embrace. As we danced, I realized I was playing a dangerous game, but I also felt alive, more like a girl than ever before. Relaxing into Grant's arms, I let him guide me across the floor. His grip tightened slightly as he steered me toward a quieter, shadowed corner. Before I could react, he took my hand, pulled me close, and kissed me. My heart raced as I instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck, letting him kiss me again. "Let me walk you home, Miranda," he said, his voice soft yet insistent. "I came with Cecil," I replied, glancing toward her. But Grant gestured across the way, where Cecil was already wrapped in Bill's arms. "I think she has her own escort tonight," he said with a grin. With a mixture of boldness and surrender, I agreed. "I'll let her know." I waited until Cecil and Bill had finished their kiss, then told her Grant was walking me home. She only smiled, squeezing my hand before turning back to Bill. As Grant and I left the fair, his arm draped over my shoulders, I felt both exhilarated and nervous. He stopped several times to kiss me again, his confidence unwavering. By the time we reached my door, I was dizzy with emotion. He kissed me once more before I slipped inside, my heart pounding. In my room, I found my baby doll nightgown neatly laid out on the bed, a detail I hadn't arranged. It felt surreal. I undressed, slipped it on, and climbed into bed, my mind swirling with the events of the night. The next morning, still wearing my feminine enhancements, I wrapped myself in a robe and went downstairs to find my mother in the kitchen. Her eyes immediately caught the telltale curves beneath the fabric, and she gestured for me to open the robe. Seeing the faint outline of breasts and the smooth feminine front, she raised an eyebrow. "There's a lot more to this than just padding and makeup, isn't there?" she said, her voice calm but curious. I struggled for words, but before I could respond, she continued, "I've known about the times you and Stacy went out together. Stacy told me you looked great, but I never imagined you could look this feminine." Before I could explain further, she hit me with another question. Did that boy who walked you home ask you out for tonight? I nodded. He did. He asked me to go to a movie and then for burgers and a drink. I said yes. Well, she said, her tone matter of fact, it's clear you don't need my help picking out clothes. Go put on what you wore last night and come back down. After breakfast, I went upstairs to change, taking my time to recreate my look from the previous evening. When I came back down, now wearing the skirt, blouse, and accessories, my father was awake. He studied me carefully, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. Your mother and I have known about your dressing for a while, but last night threw me for a loop. Most boys who dress as girls can't pass convincingly, but you? You looked as good as any young woman I know, including your sister. When we saw that boy kiss you goodnight, we realized this isn't just a game for you. So tell me, is this more than just a phase? I swallowed hard, then nodded. Yes, I said quietly, bracing myself for anger or disappointment. Instead, my father's response left me stunned. Since you believe being a girl is so glamorous, he said, we've decided that you will dress as a girl all the time. We'll make arrangements with the school, but from now on, you are Miranda full-time. Any questions? I blinked, struggling to process his words. Finally, I shook my head. No, but if this is how it's going to be, my name is Miranda. And if you want me to dress as a girl, I'll do it. Gladly. He nodded, but his tone turned practical. There will be rules. You'll have new chores and a curfew midnight, just like Stacy had. Your mother will help you with outfits, but unless you have a good reason or permission, you're not to wear slacks, jeans, or pants. Skirts, dresses, and shorts in the summer. You will present yourself as a girl in every way, including dating. Let's see how long this lasts. Though his words carried a hint of skepticism, I couldn't help but feel a swell of excitement. I was no longer pretending. Miranda was no longer a secret. This was my life now, and I was ready to embrace it fully. I was utterly stunned by my father's decree, but deep inside, I couldn't help smiling. I could tell he was trying to scare me into abandoning my femininity, but he had no idea how much I truly wanted this. Pants were never my preference. Skirts and dresses had always felt like the natural choice for me. However, the idea of going to school as a girl was daunting. It wasn't a matter of if my classmates would find out, it was when. And when they did, I feared the ridicule and isolation would be unbearable. Still, for now, I decided to embrace the moment. After breakfast, Mom told me to get dressed, clean the kitchen, and meet her in her bedroom. When I finally entered, she was waiting for me, her expression thoughtful. I'd like to see how you've managed to look so much like a girl, she said. Without hesitation, I undressed, revealing everything I had worked so hard to perfect. Mom gasped softly, clearly impressed. That's incredible. Where did you get all of this? She asked, gesturing to my enhancements. I explained that I found everything online and even shared how much it had cost. I also mentioned that I had to remove the prosthetics once a week to let my skin breathe, but otherwise had no restrictions. To demonstrate, I carefully showed her how realistic it was, even inserting a finger slightly to prove its functionality. They said it's as close to real as you can get without surgery, I added. Mom sat on the edge of the bed, her face a mix of awe and realization. It was clear she understood that my father's attempt to intimidate me had backfired spectacularly. Instead of scaring me away, his demand had given me the freedom to live as Miranda without fear of judgment. I was thriving in the role, and she could see it. Why don't you show me what clothes you have, she suggested. For the next couple of hours, we went through my wardrobe. Mom was surprised by how much I already had, admitting it would suffice for now. You'll need your hair professionally styled though, she said, and you should learn how to do your nails properly. As she returned my clothes to the closet, she added, there are a few things we need to pick up while we're out. How about we go to the salon and get your hair and nails done? I was thrilled. This was the kind of opportunity I had always dreamed of. Sure, Mom, I replied, but I have a date with Grant tonight, so we'll need to be back in time. Mom sighed, still adjusting to how naturally I had embraced this new reality. She grabbed her purse, and we headed out, both smiling. I noticed my father watching us leave, his expression unreadable. As we walked to the car, I could almost imagine Mom's thoughts. If he wants her to be a girl, I'll make sure she's the best one she can be. At the salon, I was seated in a stylist's chair, flipping through a book of hairstyles. The stylist suggested we make my hair all one color. Blonde would suit you nicely, she said. I wasn't sure at first, but her confidence convinced me. Let's do it, I said, nodding. The process took hours. My hair was cut, dyed, and styled into a soft perm that framed my face beautifully. While I was under the dryer, a nail technician approached with my mom. Your mom says you need your nails done, she said with a friendly smile. Let's start with your hands. By the time we left the salon, my transformation was complete. My hair was a radiant blonde, styled into gentle waves. My nails were polished in a soft red, slightly longer with rounded tips. My earlobes now sported delicate gold studs, courtesy of a quick piercing. I felt radiant. How do you feel? Mom asked as we walked toward the car. Great, I said honestly. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Mom smiled knowingly. Your father thinks this will scare you out of dressing up, but we both know he's wrong, don't we? I nodded. He doesn't realize this is what I've always wanted. When I saw you sitting in that chair earlier, I knew Miranda was here to stay, she said. Just remember, when we get home, act like you're only doing this because he told you to. Let him think he's in control. I agreed, and as we passed a lingerie shop in the mall, Mom turned to me. There are a few things you'll need. Let's go in. The shop was a kaleidoscope of vibrant colors and delicate fabrics. I followed Mom as she spoke to a sales associate. My daughter needs foundation garments. Do you carry corsets? The associate smiled. No, but we have corselets that work just as well. Would you like her to try one on? Mom looked at me and I nodded eagerly. It seemed my journey as Miranda was just beginning. Back at the lingerie shop, the sales associate quickly measured me and returned with a corselet in hand. My mother took it, and we went to the changing room, where I endured the tight lacing process as my waistline was reduced by at least 2 inches. I looked in the mirror. Stunned at the transformation the garment pushed my breasts up and together, creating eye-catching cleavage while sculpting my waist into an enviable hourglass shape. There, that should do it, my mother said with a satisfied smile. Can I take this thing off now, Mom? I asked, a little breathless. She chuckled and nodded. But before leaving, we bought 2 corselets, one in white and the other in peach. As we walked out of the shop, Mom's tone turned thoughtful. Let's head home, Miranda. Your father is going to need some time to adjust when he realizes just how willingly you've embraced being a girl. She wasn't wrong. The moment my father saw me, his expression went from shock to stuttering disbelief. His eyes darted to my nails, my freshly styled and dyed blonde hair, and the unmistakable confidence I now carried. He started to speak, but couldn't seem to form the words. I left him in his flustered state and retreated to my room, leaving my mother to smooth things over. On my dresser, I found a note, called Cecil. Closing the door, I picked up the phone and dialed her number. When I told Cecil everything that had happened, she immediately invited me over. At Cecil's house, she met me at the door, her eyes immediately going to my hair. She recognized the perm instantly, and my manicured nails only confirmed what she suspected. Once in her room, I explained what had unfolded, from my father's surprising declaration to my mother's unwavering support. So, it looks like I'll be going to school as a girl on Monday, I said with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Cecil's smile was grim. That's going to be interesting. When Bill and Grant find out, they're going to be pissed. They might even try to hurt you. My mom says she'll handle it, so I'm going, I replied, resolute. Cecil studied me for a moment, then nodded. Just be careful, Miranda. I will. Promise. The rest of the afternoon was spent discussing my feelings and planning for school. Cecil offered advice and support, and by dinner time, I felt a little more prepared for what lay ahead. When I returned home, my father greeted me with a neutral tone, informing me that dinner was ready. He barely spoke throughout the meal, his silence heavy with thought. Finally, near the end of dinner, he broke the quiet. "You did what I told you to do," he began, his voice low. "Not what I thought you would do. So I guess I have nobody to blame but myself. Your mother tells me you've wanted to be a girl since you were a child. Is that true?" I nodded, bracing myself. "And you went out with Stacy as a girl?" Another nod. He sighed deeply. "I suppose we're doing the right thing then. But I want you to know that I'm still struggling to accept this. Seeing my son as a girl isn't something I can just get used to overnight." I couldn't hold back any longer. The frustration and emotions spilled out. "Dad, look at me. I make a better girl than I ever did as a boy. I'm short, skinny, and smart, qualities no one ever appreciated when I was a boy. The guys never wanted me on their teams, not even in grade school. Last night, I finally felt like I belonged. I wore the clothes I wanted, helped Cecil with her makeup, and for once, people saw me, accepted me, even liked me. You tried to scare me out of this, but it didn't work. I'm not going to stop. You told me to do this, and now we all have to live with it." I stormed away from the table, tears streaming down my face. My mother followed me, pulling me into a comforting embrace. "He hates me, Mom. I'm a freak," I sobbed. Mom held me at arm's length, her voice calm but firm. "No, he doesn't, Miranda. He's scared. He doesn't understand why you'd give up being male to embrace being female. What you said to him was harsh, but I think it needed to be said. Now, I want you to go back in there and hug your father. He loves you, even if he's struggling to show it." With tear-streaked cheeks, I returned to the dining room and stood by my father. He looked up at me, his expression softening. Without a word, he pulled me into a hug. "I guess we have some adjusting to do, don't we?" he said, his voice heavy with emotion. I nodded, and he released me with a small smile. "Go get ready for your date." Grant was kind and attentive throughout the evening, but I couldn't shake the emotional toll of the day. After the movie, I asked him to take me home. "It's not you, Grant," I assured him. "I'm just tired and had a rough day. Call me tomorrow." He smiled and agreed, leaving me at my doorstep with a gentle kiss goodnight. As I climbed into bed that night, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. My journey as Miranda was only beginning, and I knew there were challenges ahead. But for the first time, I felt ready to face them. That night, I lay in bed wrestling with my thoughts. Doubts began creeping in, gnawing at my resolve and stirring an unease I couldn't shake. Was I doing the right thing? Could I handle the risks? What if I lost my father's love? These questions battered my mind, and by the time I finally drifted off to sleep, exhaustion had consumed me. The next morning, my mother woke me gently, urging me to throw on a robe and join her for breakfast. I ate my cereal in silence, lost in my thoughts, debating whether to confide in her. Before I could decide, she sat beside me and held my hand, her voice calm and understanding. "You look worried. Are you scared now?" I hesitated before answering. It wasn't the thought of being a girl that frightened me, it was the possibility of losing my father's love. That fear had been the shadow haunting me all night. As if summoned, my father walked in and sat down, his expression serious yet calm. "I've been thinking about what you said last night," he began, his voice steady. "If there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that change happens, and we either accept it or live in a very small box. Well, I don't understand why you want to be a girl. I accept that you do. Stacy wasn't allowed as many privileges as you've been given, and she was older than you when she earned them. From this point on, you'll have the same restrictions she did. Your mother and I will visit the school on Monday to ensure you're enrolled as Miranda. If, after 3 months, you still want this, we'll make it legal and change your name." I couldn't contain myself. I threw my arms around him and hugged him tightly, something I would never have done as a boy. The relief was overwhelming. "Now, go get ready for church," he said with a small smile. "You've got about an hour." I chose a pink suit with a white silk blouse and white heels for church, wanting to look as polished and feminine as possible. By the time I appeared in the family room, I was composed and confident, the picture of a demure young lady. My hair and makeup were impeccable, my smile wide and sincere. As we entered the church, I spotted Cecil with her parents and waved. Her mother, Abigail, glanced at me and hesitated, recognition flickering in her eyes as she pieced together who I was. She and Cecil approached us before Mass, and after polite greetings, Abigail turned to my mother with a pointed question. "Is this your son?" My mother smiled warmly, her response steady. "Not anymore, Abigail. She's a daughter in every sense of the word." Abigail, momentarily at a loss for words, seemed to accept the answer but reserved her thoughts for later. We sat together during the service, and afterward, my father invited Cecil and her mother to join us for lunch. As we sat at the restaurant, my father addressed Abigail directly. "Miranda told us about her needs, and after much discussion, we've decided she should be allowed to be herself. I don't pretend to understand it, but I trust her. If she says she wants to be a girl, then we support her. We hope you'll understand and support her as well." Abigail studied me for a long moment. Her gaze softened as she took in my polished appearance, my makeup, my hair, my composed demeanor. It was clear that no ordinary boy could achieve what I had. Finally, she nodded. "It's not my place to judge her," Abigail said carefully. "If you think this is right, then of course I'll support her. Miranda and Cecil have grown close, and I think it's been good for both of them." By the end of lunch, I felt lighter. Abigail's acceptance bolstered my confidence, and I spent the rest of the day with Cecil, trying on clothes and playing games. It was a simple yet comforting way to prepare for what I knew would be a challenging Monday. That morning, I rose early to ensure I had enough time to get ready. I carefully selected my outfit, a navy A-line skirt that fell just above my knees, a pink blouse, and a simple gold chain around my neck. My makeup was subtle: soft red lipstick, a hint of peach blusher, and just enough eyeshadow and eyeliner to accentuate my features. I spritzed on a bit of perfume, grabbed my books and purse, and slipped into navy flats before joining my parents for the ride to school. We walked into the building together, heading straight to the principal's office. Inside, my father and the principal immediately recognized each other, exchanging grins and catching up on old times. "Oswald Kaufman," the principal exclaimed. "Eleanor," my father responded, his smile widening. After a brief reunion, my father got to the point. "Eleanor, the reason we're here is because of Miranda." Principal Eleanor glanced at me, then back at my father. "We can enroll her as soon as we have her transcripts, Oswald." I felt a wave of relief and anticipation wash over me. I was ready to face this next chapter as Miranda, determined to make it work no matter what challenges lay ahead. Dad raised his hand, signaling the principal to pause. "Eleanor, Miranda has attended this school for the last 2 years," he said. The principal's confusion deepened, and she glanced at me for clarity. "Miranda is our son," Dad explained, his voice steady but firm. I sat quietly, waiting as the weight of his words sunk in. Eleanor took a moment to absorb the revelation. "Miranda has undergone a transformation I didn't think possible," Dad continued. "But she has convinced me that what she's doing is right for her. We want her to attend school as a girl, and we need your help." The principal nodded slowly, her understanding growing. "I think I can help, Oswald," she said, "but she'll have to convince the school nurse first." She turned her gaze to me. "Do you know Mrs. Schmidt?" "Yes, ma'am," I replied, trying to sound composed. "Good. Go see her and come back here. We'll wait for you." I made my way to Mrs. Schmidt's office, my heart pounding. The nurse was known for her perfunctory approach. She was nearing retirement, and her evaluations rarely went beyond taking a student's blood pressure and a cursory glance to determine their sex. Sure enough, she took my blood pressure and gave me a thorough once-over before writing "female" on the form. Without a word, she handed me the paperwork, and I headed back to the principal's office. When Eleanor saw the form, she smiled warmly. "Miranda, what's your middle name, dear?" "Jane," I answered. "Well then, Miranda Kaufman, welcome as a student here." I hesitated for a moment. Actually, I think it would be better if I used my grandmother's maiden name, Contrell. Dad had agreed to this change earlier, and I thought it might make things easier for everyone. Elinor nodded thoughtfully. If you and your father agree, then Contrail it is. You should also know, she added, that you're not the only special girl attending this school. My curiosity piqued, but before I could ask, she cut me off. No, I won't tell you who it is, just as I won't reveal anything about you to anyone else. As I stood to leave, Eleanor continued, you'll need to take the usual home economics classes and the feminine hygiene classes alongside the other girls. I'll also exempt you from gym classes and adjust your schedule accordingly. She handed me a note from my homeroom teacher and sent me on my way. When I entered my homeroom, I was assigned a new seat, blending in seamlessly as just another code. By the end of the day, it seemed that no one recognized me from my former self. I was accepted as Miranda, no questions asked. Cecil joined me at lunch, her usual supportive self. Mom and I had a long talk last night, she confided. I explained that you were a girl now, so even if we were in the bedroom naked together, it wouldn't matter. But she's still a little unsure. She said she's planning to talk to your mom about it. I nodded, understanding the delicate balance Cecil was navigating. The day passed without incident, and as each day unfolded, my confidence grew. I stopped worrying about being discovered and started fully embracing my new life. I began making friends with other girls who accepted me without hesitation. Cecil and I were even welcomed into what we called a girls' club, an informal group of classmates who hung out together, sharing laughs and secrets. By the end of the week, I felt more secure in my identity than ever before. I wasn't just pretending to be Miranda. I was Miranda. This life, this sense of belonging, was no longer a dream, it was my reality. In the months since my transformation began, life had taken on a new rhythm. I was no longer pretending to be Miranda. I was Miranda in every sense. My parents had adjusted to the change, my father becoming surprisingly supportive, even protective, while my mother remained my constant anchor. Grant and I had grown closer, and the silver ring he slipped on my finger during a quiet moment at the park symbolized a bond I had never imagined I would experience. So, when my mother asked to speak with me privately one evening, I knew it was something important. She led me to my bedroom, shutting the door behind us. Her expression was thoughtful but kind as she sat on the edge of my bed and gestured for me to join her. Miranda, she began, her voice soft yet firm, since all of this started, you've embraced being a girl in every way but one. Your father and I talked about this last night, and we think it's time for you to tell us what we already know. You want to have the surgery to become a woman, don't you? I didn't hesitate. The answer had been clear in my heart for some time now. Yes, Mother, I said, my voice steady. I can't see myself any other way. Everyone thinks of me as a girl, and Grant. I glanced down at the ring on my finger, a smile forming. Grant gave me his ring. You and Dad see it too. With everything that's happened, and how I feel, how can I not take this next step? My mother's face softened into a smile. I've made an appointment with a specialist, she said. She's one of the best in the field. If she agrees, we'll sign the papers for you to start the process. I blinked in surprise, the weight of her words sinking in. You mean, I'll start the medication. I'll really become a girl. Mom nodded. The doctor has to approve it first, Miranda, but yes, if she does, this is the next step. The weeks that followed felt surreal. The doctor approved my request after a thorough evaluation, and soon I began hormone therapy. My body responded quickly, reshaping itself to match the image I had long carried in my mind. My hips softened, my breasts became fuller, and my face took on a delicate, distinctly feminine contour. By my senior year, I was more confident than ever, moving through life as the woman I had always known I was. Grant became my biggest supporter, standing by me through every milestone. He was patient and kind, giving me the space to grow while showing me the depth of his love. One night, after an evening spent together under the stars, I gave in to a desire I had been holding back. It was tender and intimate, and it felt right. There was no shame, no hesitation, just love. Grant held me afterward, whispering words of reassurance that made me feel cherished and whole. As graduation approached, I felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The future stretched out before me, full of promise but also uncertainty. One day, Grant surprised me by inviting me to a secluded spot by the lake where we often went to escape the world. He seemed nervous, fidgeting with something in his pocket. "Miranda," he began, his voice unsteady, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about the future. I know you've been through so much to become who you are, and I love every part of you, who you were, who you are, and who you're becoming. I want to be there for all of it." Before I could respond, he dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a diamond ring that sparkled in the fading sunlight. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, my voice caught in my throat. "Yes," I whispered, my hands trembling as he slid the ring onto my finger. The unexpected twist came on the day of our wedding. As I stood at the altar, looking into Grant's eyes, I caught sight of someone in the crowd, a familiar face I couldn't quite place. After the ceremony, they approached me. It was a young woman, smiling warmly. "Congratulations, Miranda," she said, her voice kind. "I've been watching your journey from afar, and I want you to know how inspiring it's been." Her words struck a chord. "Do I know you?" I asked, puzzled. She shook her head. "Not exactly, but like you, I'm one of the special girls from school. I've always admired your courage. Seeing you live your truth helped me find the strength to live mine." Her confession brought me full circle, reminding me how far I had come and how much further there was to go. Life as Miranda was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace every moment, with Grant by my side and my future shining brightly ahead.